certain regions of Ghana, including Kekeli Radio in Ho, Radio Justice in Tamale, and Radio Max in Takrade. Better still, you can please download the MyJourneyline app from Play Store and App Store to listen live around the world. In this edition, Ashanti Regional Police intensify security following recent armed robbery attacks and disappearance of several children.
All that.
For updates on the security situation there. Also, government rejects claims it is running away from accountability in the course of a presidential travels controversy as the leadership in parliament grants the finance minister more time to prepare his answers.
The man says, look, I'll come back to you. I would respond. How then does it become a propaganda material?
But the Member of Parliament for North Tongo, Kujeto Blackwell, is unhappy about the turn of events.
They are constitutionally bound to be accountable, and there is all of this delay tactic. It must strike you as very strange.
And as the world celebrates fathers and their phenomenal role, we'll hear from some fathers on how proud they are of that role they play.
The most interesting part of being a father is not really the effect that I've had on my kids, but actually the effect they have had on me.
You want to play a role in the life of your child so that...
And of course, we hear from you too on the impact your father has had on your life.
When I was at school going age, he sent me to class 1, and now I am who I am because he took me to school.
I am a left-handed girl, and when I was going to class 1, he told my teacher that is how she is. Don't try to change her for me.
We also have sports.
Former WBO super bantamweight champion Isaac Dodbe will take another step towards his push for a second world title when he faces American boxer Adam Lopez.
We have that and more here on the Midday News. Plus, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu says his We are your home of bold and fearless journalism. This afternoon, for months, armed robbers have rained terror on people in many parts of the country. In Accra, a police officer providing security for a bullion van and a mother of 3 were shot dead. But there's a lot of worry in the Ashanti region where armed robbers shot 5 persons during an attack in the town of Mansumo Sikrom. Today, police at Amansia South District have been combing the area as investigations get underway into Thursday night's gold robbery incident. 4 armed men shot 2 gold dealers in the legs. District Police Commander ASP Felix Akuwa says the poor nature of roads remains a major challenge in fighting crime in the area. Solomon Oforiamanfo reports.
The 4 armed men stormed the Mansumo Sikrom area Thursday dawn to rob 4 gold buyers and a mobile money vendor at gunpoint. One of the victims shared his ordeal.
I ran back a wine 30. Me team me prono panya ini tuwe pay na pay. Umpimi bium bademo. And others ye kuo and is ye jusika. Then up. I'm movers canunko.
The men came to sell gold to me at 9 p.m. the previous day, amounting to 900 cedis, and left. The next day around 1:30 a.m., I heard a hard knock at my door, followed by indiscriminate shooting, and they entered the room. They took all my money and asked me to bring my gold or I would lose my life. They took 10 pounds of gold and 8 blades.
SP Felix Akowa there ending Solomon Oferiamanfo's report. I'll stay in the region a while longer because the police are addressing the media on security beef up and situation there as we speak. But quickly, before I give you that update, I'll take you to the central regional capital where police there say they are investigating the circumstances which led to the attack on Brilliant Van at Gumwa or Treko on Kaswa Winneba Road yesterday. The van came under attack but was rescued by the police patrol team. The Central Regional Police PRO, DSP Irene Sewa Opong, has been providing updates on that. Our Central Regional correspondent, Richard Kojonyako, joins us on the line. Richard, what's the very latest on this particular situation?
Well, for the very latest is that the police in the Central Region said they are investigating this matter. The incident, the recount happened around 19 hours yesterday, and an extract of occurrence. So they said that they are still looking for the perpetrators of this act.
We can now hear from PRO for the Central Regional Police, DSP Irene Sewapong.
On the 17th of June 20.
Another attack on a bullion van. They took the intervention of the police to avert any other major incident there. We know that the situation in Accra led to the death of a police officer. But I'll take you back to the Ashanti region, and we've been checking the security situation there. The police has been providing some updates to the media. My colleague Ohiming Teria is there for us. Ohiming, give us the very latest in terms of what the police have been briefing you on what the security situation in the region is. Hello, Hemming.
Hello, MFA.
Very well. You can hear me now, Hemming. I'm asking for the very latest from that briefing.
Yes, MFA, the Deputy Regional Police Commander, DCOP David Ajiman Ajem, has been addressing media in the region over some developments over the past few days, especially the robbery incident at Manso Mosikrum, where some gold dealers were robbed. And according to DCOP,
Hemming Terrier, and a million apologies for the poor quality in that sound at some point there. So he's been giving us update on what the briefing is from the police in terms of the security situation in the region. I'll bring you back to Accra. This time we're going to Parliament, where MP for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, and indeed Ghanaians will have to wait a little longer before the full details of the cost of the recent trip by President Akufo-Addo in parts of Europe will be known. This is because the leadership of the House has granted the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta more time to prepare his answers. Ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Mr. Ablakwa, who filed the questions demanding government tells Ghanaians how much it cost the nation to rent the private jet for the president, said the setback is an attempt by the Finance Minister to run away from accountability.
This is the pinnacle of luxury, as you have all researched and found out. It's called the penthouse in the skies. This is about financial accountability. This is about financial prudence. This is about national priorities. This is about protecting the public purse. Now we've brought them to the more appropriate forum where they are constitutionally bound to be accountable. And there is all of this delay tactic. It must strike you as very strange because really, what do they have to hide? It's as though something is happening behind the scenes and they need time to complete whatever they are doing. These are not the tenets of accountability of good government. If you have nothing to hide, if you don't need to buy time to do anything untoward, you just respond.
Well, the leadership of Parliament met this morning to consider government business for next week and agreed to allow the Finance Minister more time to prepare his answers. Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin is unhappy with Mr. Ablakwa's decision to prosecute the issues in the media.
He has put out figures, and that is where I challenge him. He gets his figures from. Meanwhile, in Parliament, you didn't talk about those figures. The man says, look, I'll come back to you. I would respond. How then does it become a propaganda material? After all...
So, is there any decision as to when the Finance Minister will appear before Parliament to respond to Mr. Okudzeto's question?
It will find space in the order paper next week. There should be no problem at all. You remember that even when Mr. Ablakwa had not filed his question, he was out there with it. Even when he filed his questions and the questions were inadmissible, he didn't come out to tell the public that indeed those questions he filed had been rejected by Mr. Speaker and he had to refile again. But rather created the impression that, he has filed the questions and it appears that there were some delays. At the time that he himself was telling the media that he had filed his questions and is hoping that Speaker will admit them, he knew, or he ought to have known, that his questions as filed were rejected. And in fact, the text of his earlier questions I have signed by him. And I would want to challenge my brother on this to come and tell the whole country that he never filed an earlier question.
That's the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin there, speaking to my colleague Elton Brobe on this particular issue. Let me take you live to Parliament now, where Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins us live. Joseph, we've been hearing from the Deputy Majority Leader that this will find its way into the order paper next week, but I'm sure you've been probing further. When exactly next week are we expecting the Finance Minister to give us these answers?
On the floor, the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, didn't give a specific date, except to again make the point that next week it will be dealt with. When you look on the business statement, which spells out the business that the House will be doing next week, it's not captured there in terms of that being one of the items. But he's insisted on the floor in response to a question from Mr. Ablakwa that yes, it will be dealt with next week.
Now let's talk about the Deputy Minister designate and the approval. When we know that the House is set to consider it, do we have the latest information on that?
And so a while ago, Speaker Alban Bagbin announced that he's been informed that leadership has actually made some progress on that. And the leadership on both the majority and the minority side have been confirming that a decision has been taken that those whose names are considered the contentious ones, particularly Deputy Chuman Pofu, who is headed to the Education Ministry as Deputy Minister designate, well, the decision has been taken that herself and others, their names be taking off the reports that's currently before the House, which has to do with herself and 11 others, so that then those ones approved today and deal with herself and a few other contentious ones next week.
Well, the defense minister is expected back, but this time with the national security minister. They are to answer some urgent questions. What are the details?
So the Minister for National Security, for example, will be coming to respond to a question having to do with situations having to do with recruitment into various security agencies. We're also expecting the National Security Minister to come respond to a question on why DSP Azugu remains at post at the Ministry of National Security as head of the SWAT team, even after the Emil Short Commission recommended that his secondment to that ministry be revoked. And this is a question by Mr. Ernest Nogbe, which will be dealt with next week Wednesday. Apart from that, another question from Roxy Nafiamako is also getting the Minister for National Security to come respond to a question as to how come DCOP of Payado retired was assaulted in his office in Kumasi under interesting circumstances. So all those ministers are coming in.
Okay, that's Joseph Opoku Gakpo, our parliamentary correspondent. Meanwhile, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu has just also given a hint that his side will, by close of day today, file a motion seeking a parliamentary probe into Ghana's purchase of COVID-19 vaccines. He's been speaking on the floor.
And to request for a bipartisan probe into Ghana's procurement of COVID vaccines as $26 and not $10 as is the practice in many countries. And for which motion, as I've emphasized, will be to call for a bipartisan probe, because for all intents and purposes, we think that even that transaction is an international economic transaction within the meaning of Article 1815 of the Constitution. Parliament is not aware of it. We would want to appreciate and understand the procurement processes that were used, but more importantly, to demand value for money for the Ghanaian taxpayer, and that we are not just seeking to profit from COVID with this questionable transaction. So, Mr. Speaker, we will file an urgent motion. We've done that. I'm sure the table will give it to you before the close of sitting. But it's a matter that I would have raised if I got opportunity to be at the business committee.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu there speaking on the floor of Parliament. This is the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. We've been engaging the security situation in the country, especially with the focus on the Ashanti region, as police intensify security following recent armed robbery attacks and disappearance of several children. When we return, we have sport and then also ask why a father would torture an 8-year-old girl currently receiving emergency treatment at Wale Wale Government Hospital. I have details of that, and as we celebrate World Father's Day, their phenomenal role will be on the spotlight.
This bulletin is live in the Volta region on Jubilee Radio Qatar.
Sports, and Mubarak is here in the studios. Welcome.
Thank you. Let's do some boxing because Isaac Royal Storm Dudley returns to the ring tomorrow for a clash against American boxer Adam Lopez in Las Vegas. For Dodbe, it will be another step to regaining a world championship status, while for Lopez, it will be a stage to prove he is worthy of winning his first world title. My colleague Hans Mensa Ando has been keeping an eye on this impending bout and says Dodbe cannot afford to lose.
I mean, it all goes back to those two defeats against Emmanuel Navarrete. If he had not opted for the rematch straight away against Navarrete and looked for another path towards a world title glory, the story could have been different. But back-to-back defeats in the manner that it happened means that his climb up has to be flawless, if that's the word. And so if there is any setback in the form of a defeat against a
Sports.
Thank you very much, Mubarak. Enjoy the rest of the day. Now, trial of former CocoBot CEO Dr. Stephen Opuni has been put on hold. This is as a result of a petition he has sent to the Chief Justice, Kwesi Ening-Yeboah, seeking his intervention. Dr. Opuni has on 2 occasions pushed for the judge hearing the case, Clemens Wanyenuga, to recuse himself. Both attempts have failed, with Dr. Opuni ordered to open his defense. This did not happen today. Dr. Opuni and businessman Seydou Agongo have been on trial since 2017 over an alleged $217 million loss caused to the state in the purchase of fertilizers. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has just returned from court. He joins me in studio. Joseph, what have we been able to pick up about the contents of this petition?
Our sources say it still has to do with the judge hearing the case, Clemens Wanyenuga. This is actually the second time such a petition has been sent to the Chief Justice. The first was in 2020 when the judge was accused of bias for praising government's free senior high school program. The CJ dismissed that request and that he transfers the case to another judge. Last month, another request was made, first before the judge himself. He dismissed that request, saying that it was an application made in bad faith. Now they've taken the matter to the Chief Justice, asking that he intervenes and transfers the case to a different judge to handle it.
And what's been the reaction of the state prosecutors to this latest development?
Director of Public Prosecution, Yvonne Atakro-Bobisa, told the court that the state had not seen this particular petition. And so the judge said that they are looking forward to see what steps the Chief Justice will take about the petition. So for now, the case has been put on hold.
Thank you very much, Joseph Akable. I take you to the Northeast region now, where an 8-year-old girl is currently receiving emergency treatment at the Wale Wale mother. The girl, who is said to have denied the accusation, was accosted by her father, Al-Hassan Majidi, who beat her and set her hands on fire. Auntie of the victim, Aminatu Salifu, has been speaking to correspondent Ilyas Tanko.
I received a call inviting me to this hospital, and upon arrival, I was introduced to this little girl who I readily identified. She is my junior sister's daughter, living with her father in one of the villages outside Wale Wale. I asked her what is wrong with her, and she showed me her hand. I asked her what happened to her hand, and she said her father set it on fire and burned it. I asked her what crime she has committed to warrant this barbaric punishment by her father. Then she said she was wrongfully accused of stealing 10 Ghana cedis from her grandmother. The man first assaulted the child with a stick, leading to injuries to her eye before putting her hand into the fire. The next day, this man refused to give the child any treatment, rather abandoned her and left to his farm after this girl cried throughout the night.
That's Ilyasu Tanko there interacting with auntie of the victim, Aminatu Salifu there with our correspondent Ilyasu Tanko. This is the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. An executive director for the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boache, is asking government to engineer concrete policies to increase electricity consumption across the country. In his view, the move will help government to generate more revenue to finance the excess capacity charges by some independent power producers. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, appearing before Parliament yesterday, revealed that government paid $937 million to 3 independent power producers, AXA, Car Power and Sun Power, for excess capacity charges. We'll hear shortly from Ben Boache, but first listen to the Finance Minister speaking on the floor of Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, the underlisted independent producers have received payments for excess capacity charge for the period under review 2017 to 2020, totaling $937.5 million US. The breakdown is as follows: AXA $347.2 million, Car Power $359.00 million, and Sun Power $231.3 million.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Minister's answer is in the form of a range, a period under review 2017 to 2020. Will the Minister be kind enough to break it down to how much was paid for each year?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Honorable Member, thank you very much for the supplementary question. The amount, as I stated, from 2017 to 2020 totals $937.5 million US.
That's the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. We can now hear from the Executive Director of ASEP, Ben Boache. He believes the situation must be tackled head-on.
No, I think the payment of capacity charges is concerning, and we started warning even before the contract, matured. So we missed that critical point where we could have negotiated or renegotiated some of the agreements. And once some of them have come to fruition, you just have to go ahead and pay, and that is the difficulty that the government has.
It appears the country, our hands are tied. What should we do to deal with this whole excess capacity charges, or it is now too late, there's nothing you can do about it?
No, I think now we have to ensure that we can encourage demand, encourage people to consume, quickly retool the transmission distribution systems. Because if you have excess, companies are not generating and they are claiming the excess. So we need to really, engineer policies to be able to increase demand.
Ben Boache with ASEP. In a related development, the Commercial Court in London has refused to grant government's application to challenge an order by the International Court of Arbitration to pay $134 million judgment debt to an independent power producer, GPGC Limited. There's more on that on myjoyonline.com. Matt, what are your fondest memories of your father? On Sunday, the world will celebrate fathers. On the AM show and Super Morning show today, fathers were the focus. First, let's hear from General Overseer of the Royal House Chapel International, Apostle Sam Kranchi-Ankra, who was taking care of so many people aside his children.
My memorable occasion is the joy when these students finish school and you see them come to me in groups of 10, in groups of 4, 5, 6, and they say, Apostle General, thank you so much. 4 years ago, you started paying our school fees to university. By the grace of God, we are done. We are now going to the job market to work. Thank you so much for investing in us.
That's Apostle Sam Kranchi-Ankra. We can also hear from some other fathers who have also been sharing some tidbits on being a responsible father.
The most interesting part of being a father is how much I want approval from my kids. And I want them to respect me for who I am and for my ideas, and not just because I'm an authority figure.
There's no script as to how to be a good father, or you learn each day, and that's no mean responsibility. Especially if you want to be a good father, indeed. You want to play a role in the life of your child so that they grow up to be someone you're proud of.
Well, we can end with some memorable lessons some fathers have taught their children.
I am extremely grateful for my father. He bought training college forms for me when I said I won't go. I'm going to read law. I went for interviews, and when they asked me why you here, I said my father bought the forms. Today, I'm a lecturer, and I'm so grateful for my father. I realized teaching is my core.
When I was at school going age, he sent me to class 1, and now I am who I am because he took me to school.
I am a left-handed girl, and when I was going to class 1, he was also a left-handed man. But during his time, he was forced to use the right hand. So when I was going to class 1, he took me and told my teacher that this is my girl. That is how she is. Don't try to change her for me.
Fathers are certainly heroes. They deserve to be celebrated. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Stories making the headlines. Government running away from accountability. Minority alleges after Finance Minister fails to provide answers on Akufo-Addo's foreign trips. We'll be hearing from Deputy Majority Leader discounting those claims. Also attacks on bullion vans by armed robbers. Fresh case on Kaswa-Winneba Highway. Also man shot dead by friend over 5 Ghana cedi deaths. That and more on myjoyonline.com. Thanks so much for your company. Living Word with Pastor Mensah Otabil. Wisdom is up next. I am MF Apau. Have a good afternoon.